In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro discusses a big win for Donald Trump at the Supreme Court. The court ruled unanimously that states cannot simply declare someone an insurrectionist and remove them from the ballot for the presidency. The court emphasized that only Congress has the power to define who is an insurrectionist for the purposes of election eligibility. The 14th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1868, restricts state autonomy and gives Congress the power to enforce certain provisions. The court determined that states do not have the authority to disqualify federal officeholders, such as the president, based on the insurrectionist clause of the 14th Amendment. This ruling was a significant victory for Donald Trump, ensuring that he must be put back on the ballot in Colorado. The liberal justices on the court, while concurring with the judgment, expressed dissent on the rationale behind the majority opinion. They argued that the majority went beyond the necessary scope of the case and limited federal enforcement of the insurrectionist provision. Despite this dissent, the overall consensus was 9-0 in favor of reinstating Trump on the ballot. Polling data discussed in the podcast reveals troubling trends for Joe Biden's campaign. A recent poll from the New York Times, Siena, shows Trump leading Biden 48-43. Notably, Trump is winning Hispanic voters 46-40 and is making significant inroads with black voters, garnering 23% support. These numbers indicate a lack of enthusiasm for Biden among key demographic groups. Nate Silver, a poll analyst, delves into the implications of these polling results. He highlights the importance of independent voters in elections and notes that flipping a voter is worth twice as much as turning out a non-voter. With party identification evenly split between Democrats and Republicans, independent voters play a crucial role in determining election outcomes. Silver points out that Biden's strategy of focusing on turnout rather than persuasion may not be effective in the current political landscape. Democrats have lost their edge in party identification, making it essential to appeal to independent voters. Trump's ability to attract swing voters and maintain a high level of support among his base puts him in a strong position for the upcoming election. Further polling data from CBS News reinforces the challenges facing Biden's presidency. A majority of respondents rate Trump's presidency positively in terms of the economy, while Biden's approval ratings are significantly lower. These findings suggest that Trump's economic policies are viewed more favorably by the public compared to Biden's performance. Shapiro highlights the significant challenges facing Joe Biden in the upcoming election. Despite starting with a relatively high approval rating, Biden's numbers have dropped significantly. Many voters, including Democrats, are disheartened by his performance. The perception of Biden as too old and out of touch is a major issue, with a majority of voters, including Democrats, expressing concerns about his age. The podcast delves into the impact of Biden's policies on the economy and inflation. While Biden initially promised a stable and moderate administration, his shift towards more progressive policies has alienated many voters. The current economic situation, marked by rising prices and inflation, is seen as a direct result of Biden's decisions. The failure to address these issues effectively has further eroded confidence in his leadership. Shapiro discusses the potential realignment of voters in the upcoming election. Democrats, who once relied on the support of white working-class voters, have seen a shift in their base. Many of these voters have turned to Trump, drawn by his policies on issues like immigration and trade. The failure of Democrats to address the concerns of these voters has led to a significant loss of support. The podcast also touches on the Kathleen Kennedy strategy employed by Democrats, where they blame voters for their failures. This approach, characterized by attacking and alienating the audience, has proven to be counterproductive. By labeling dissenting voters as racists or Nazis, Democrats are further isolating themselves from key demographics and undermining their chances of success in the election. Shapiro highlights the Biden administration's immigration policies as a major point of contention. The influx of asylum seekers and migrants living in legal limbo has raised concerns among Americans. The administration's approach to immigration, including the use of cheap labor, has not been well received by the public. The conflicting strategies of supporting unions while also bringing in low-wage labor have created a sense of distrust and dissatisfaction among voters. As the election approaches, Shapiro emphasizes the need for Democrats to address the concerns of working-class voters and reevaluate their policies. The current trajectory, marked by economic challenges, inflation, and immigration issues, is not sustainable. Democrats must find a way to connect with voters and regain their trust if they hope to secure victory in the upcoming election. Shapiro introduces Jeremy's Chocolate, a company launched by the Daily Wire in response to Hershey's decision to have a man lead their Women's Day campaign. The company offers chocolate products that align with traditional values, such as he/him with nuts and she/her without nuts. He promotes Jeremy's Chocolate as a way for consumers to support a brand that shares their values. Shapiro discusses the Biden administration's attempts to shift blame for the border crisis and highlights the lack of communication between President Biden and key officials, such as the Border Patrol chief. He criticizes Biden for failing to take decisive action to address the situation at the border and points out that the administration's policies have led to negative consequences, such as the murder of a nursing student at the University of Georgia by an illegal immigrant. Shapiro analyzes the conflict in the Middle East, particularly the ongoing violence between Israel and Hamas. He criticizes Vice President Kamala Harris for calling for an immediate ceasefire without addressing Hamas's refusal to accept previous ceasefire offers. Shapiro argues that the Democratic Party's alignment with Hamas and anti-Israel sentiments could alienate moderate and independent voters, leading to potential electoral losses. Shapiro discusses the legal challenges faced by former President Donald Trump, including cases brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James and Georgia prosecutor Fani Willis. He criticizes James for pursuing civil charges against Trump without sufficient evidence of fraud or property damage. He also questions the credibility of Willis's case, suggesting that her personal and professional relationships may compromise her judgment and integrity.